This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
Another game with big playoff implications in the AFC coming up tonight. We got the Patriots at the Cardinals for Monday Night Football. The Patriots trying to get back in that 7 seed and keep pace with the Chargers and the Jets in the AFC. We're going to break down that game from a betting perspective with Ryan Williams, get his read on that one, and hopefully find you some winning bets over at FanDuel Sportsbook. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire, joined here as mentioned by Ryan Williams. Check him out on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. Ryan, happy Monday to you. How you doing today?
Oh, happy Monday to you as well, Jim. It was one of the Sundays that we'll just put in the vault. We don't talk about that anymore. But did have some good reads on the game. I believe we talked about Jacksonville plus 3.5 if Trevor Lawrence was playing. Got the Buccaneers totally wrong. So I will, ride out with that one. But there were some other good games that I liked. Philly as well, a couple overs. So, successful weekend from the betting side of things. DFS, yeah, we won't talk about it, but we got a fun Monday night one ahead of us that should be real interesting here. So I'm curious to pick your brain as well too.
I'm actually glad I don't have a ton in this game, and I'm glad about that because I finally had like a good week. From a betting perspective, it's been a rough year overall. So to actually have a good week, I'm like, okay, I'm going to let this week sit and I'm not going to add to it. We're going to let it hang. We're going to take the profits and move on to the next week because I just needed to win. And we got that this week. So that was good. It felt good to have a good read on, you mentioned the Jags game, the over and the Jags in that one. So that was fun. The only one that didn't go well was that Seahawks game. But if that's the lone dark spot of the day, I'll definitely take it. Like you mentioned, we're going to break down this Patriots at Cardinals game, talk about the traditional markets at FanDuel Sportsbook, and also player prop markets to get you set for tonight. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. We, of course, are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us there. And while you're there, if you like what you hear, feel free to leave us a rating and review as well, because those do help us out a bunch. With only a handful of Monday Night Football games remaining this season, FanDuel and Visa are coming together to make sure the excitement surrounding Monday nights is at an all-time high. Introducing Monday Night Perfect Picks presented by Visa, a free-to-play contest on FanDuel that gives you a chance to win a share of $10,000 in cash prizes courtesy of Visa. Here's how it works. You'll be presented with 10 questions centered around on-field action from Monday night's NFL game. Fans who answer the most questions correctly win their share of the $10,000 prize pool. It's that easy. The contest is now live. So head to FanDuel.com/free/contest/Visa Perfect Picks and make your picks before Monday night. That's FanDuel.com/free/contest/Visa Perfect Picks. No purchase necessary. Age and location restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See full terms at FanDuel.com. Visa and its financial institutions have not sponsored or offered this promotion in any way. Let's dive in now to this game, Ryan. Talk about the Patriots and the Cardinals. We'll talk about where the betting markets are right now. But from a top-down perspective, what's your read on this game? Because I got to be honest, Ryan, I don't have a good read on it. So I'm going to lean on you here. What you got?
Yeah, this is probably one of the biggest, polar opposite dichotomy, juxtaposition things that we could probably run into on a Monday night. Yeah. So let's start with the Patriots. You got the Patriots coming in here off of a loss from last Thursday. So Belichick, we're talking about a ton of rest. Against the spread off of a loss, this dude has been absolutely incredible when the Patriots have been favored by 7 or less. He's looking at like a 79% win rate in that regard. And obviously he's been doing this for a long time. We know how good the Patriots were under Tom Brady after a loss. So a lot of that has been under that regime. The Cardinals, on the other hand, have been absolutely awful at home. 1-5 straight up this season. I believe Kyler Murray is 1-10 in the last 11 home games with the Arizona Cardinals. So just like an ugly spot. And we just don't love taking the Arizona Cardinals at home for whatever reason. They're better on the road. So and then you talk about just like the total on this game being 43.5. Like the Patriots they haven't been able to meet this number in their past couple of games. I mean, even when we talk about the Mac Jones versus Bailey Zappi saga that was early on the season, since Mac Jones has been playing, like the offense just hasn't been able to get going. Ramondre Stevenson has struggled. And then the Cardinals on the other side, they've been hitting the overs pretty much every chance they can get with DeAndre Hopkins returning back. And now we got him, Marquise Brown, Greg Dortch all playing together. So, I mean, really, it really does make it tough. I'm going to say that I do like the Patriots here just from a coaching standpoint and the way that they do like to play, especially on defense, even with Arizona being fully healthy. Like we've seen them in these spots before and just mail it in for whatever reason. On the other side, though, I do like the over for whatever that's worth. Like Arizona just seems to still find ways to be able to put up points regardless of who they're facing. And then that's really where we like, Mac Jones, for whatever it's worth, Patricia and co, they'll let him open it up. And, maybe we can get Devontae Parker get going, Ramondre Stevenson. We would love to see him get going with the injuries to the Patriots backfield. So that's a long-winded way of saying that there's numerous ways that I could see this game going, but I'm going to lean on the Patriots side just from what they've shown me from a historical fashion.
Yeah, I think that the coaching aspect is a pretty major key here because when I run my numbers for this game, it has the Patriots by 0.85 and the Patriots by 0.82, depending which model you look at. So both very similar and both very similar to the market. And then when you toss in it's Cliff Kingsbury versus Bill Belichick, I think that 1.5 is like the perfect number. I think that is pretty much right where it should be. So that's why I feel comfortable making this just a stay away from my perspective, because I just don't want to deal with that. If it is a confusing game, it is that way. I don't want to deal with that. Now, I think that the coaching aspect is also part of the reason why I'm having a hard time getting into the Cardinals. Because I think that, I like to think about it in terms of like paths. What's the path to the Cardinals winning this game or covering, effectively the same thing at this point. The path to that is using Kyler Murray as a runner, because the one thing we've seen the Patriots struggle a lot with this year is rushing quarterbacks. You saw Justin Fields. That was like his coming out party was against the Patriots. Josh Allen's giving them issues. The Jets like almost called up Chris Streveler from their practice squad just to be like a rushing quarterback in a game at one point. Like there are a lot of teams that have given them issues when they use their quarterback as a runner. And you could say, okay, Kyler can run. Maybe that can get some issues. But do you trust this coaching staff to do that? Like analyze the situation properly and be like, okay, we're going to focus on getting Kyler involved as a rusher. Does Kyler want to be involved as a rusher? I don't know. So even if I try to talk myself into the Cardinal side of things, I can't, because there's no trust from my perspective in this coaching staff to recognize those discrepancies and take advantage.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Cliff's got to show us something here, and the way that the NFC West has been going. I mean, they're probably out of it. I think if they lose this game, depending on the picture, but it's been pretty much a crapshoot all season long. But if he's not able to get them, to the promised land and then win a game, in the postseason with this team, the way that this roster is set up, like I just feel like this is pretty much the end of the road. I don't know what else he can, what else he needs to do or show us to show that he, really belongs in this league, coaching from an aspect. Like they just can't get it together. Him and Kyler have had their bouts on the sidelines a couple times this season already. So I just love being able to take a side that I can trust here. And this New England defense has really been underrated and can cause them some fits, especially if they're not going to make Kyler mobile, which I don't think we can trust at this point if the regime is doing it. But Kyler has been able to, he has the Madden playbook pretty much on that wrist. Like he just makes his own audible. He presses the buttons and we'll see if he can get it going for himself.
I think that'd be like a live betting opportunity. If you are watching this game and see, okay, in that opening script, if they use Kyler as a weapon, then maybe you look into the Cardinals. If you don't see that, stay away. Like that's kind of the read I would have on it. So I would try to get a read on the opening couple of drives, see if they're willing to use Kyler in that fashion. And if they are, that could push me towards Arizona, but I would need to see it before I buy in, because the trust level in this coaching staff is really non-existent. Now let's talk about the Patriots side here and talk about some props on their end. You mentioned Ramondre Stevenson. The efficiency has not been there, but he's had a lot of volume with no Damian Harris. Harris doubtful for tonight. Jacoby Myers is also out. So there's volume to be had in this Patriots offense. Does that open up any value on their side of things for you?
From a value standpoint, not really. These wide receivers have been tough to trust all year. I mean, Devontae Parker hasn't really done anything in the past couple of weeks since week 12, but, without Jacoby Myers, I'm sure he'll be leaned on. Could probably see a little bit more from Kendrick Bourne, a little bit more from Nelson Aguilar. And then, Tyquan Thornton has pretty much been an afterthought since he kind of broke onto the scene earlier in the year, but he's still always just hanging out there. The real pieces that are interesting for me, and we can touch on later from an anytime touchdown standpoint, but the tight ends for New England, in both Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith to a certain extent. Like these guys, we look at a couple years back when they both were coming on the team, like paid in contracts. Like these are the spots that these guys were brought in for, because this is pretty much the supreme matchup that a tight end can experience all season long going against this Arizona defense. There's no Byron Murphy, which just their secondary even more thin. So I really love getting over on the props for the tight end, specifically Hunter Henry, who's really shown that he's had a rapport with Mac Jones at points in this season. The yardage prop for him is one that I think, he could probably hit in the first half if things are breaking their way. And especially if this game does reach the over, as I'm expecting it to, I really do like the tight ends here. And, Jonnu to a certain extent. And like I said, we'll touch on that later. But yeah, love Hunter Henry. Could probably talk myself into some props in the wide receiver market, but really just going to look at the passing options or the passing props for Mac Jones in this one, especially with the over 2. You're looking at him over 1.5 touchdowns being plus 146, I believe was the last time I checked on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Like that's a supreme number in a game that I'm expecting to go over. So, I think for me, it's Mac Jones with the pass catchers is where I start. Ramondre Stevenson, he's really, even though the backfield is all to himself, he's just struggled as of late for whatever reason. He hasn't hit like over 75 yards, which, with no Damian Harris and games past the beginning of the season and into last season, like we would be smashing this all over the place. You can see that FanDuel still has some respect on him when it comes to the touchdown prop, as he's right around there with James Conner as one of the favorites. But from a yardage standpoint, it really makes me worried to get behind him here, but would not surprise me. I didn't see if we had a line here for the receiving prop. That could be an interesting one to get Ramondre Stevenson going, as he's, been known to be the pass catching back. When James White was not going to be on this roster here in the offseason going into the season, they really told us that this was going to be James White 2.0. So let's see if we can see that on primetime with him catching some passes.
The receiving prop for Ramondre is 34.5 receiving yards. He's over 4.5 receptions at like minus 150, which is a lot. So that's tough. Yeah. I think that though with Stevenson, you mentioned how he's been the primary pass catcher. I agree with that. And that's why I think I initially I pulled up the rushing tab and looked at the rushing plus receiving. I was like, okay, I know he's got this good role. Maybe I can snag an over on Ramondre here. It was 113.5. That's a massive, massive number. And I was like, okay, so do I take the under on this instead? And the pass catching aspect kept coming into my head of like, okay, he's probably going to get 7 targets. 7 targets gives you a pretty obvious path to an over there. But then you get the rushing prop, it's at 75.5. I think that's a pretty good value to go under on that number, because they're not a good running team right now. Their offensive line has had some injuries. He has not gone over 75 rushing yards since week 6. He has done it twice all year. Now, granted, those were in games where Damian Harris is out. So, those are the more relevant samples. But recently here, they lost him early in the Minnesota game. Minnesota, very good rush defense. Buffalo's a pretty good rush defense too. It's understandable he didn't get there in those games, but 75.5 is still a big number for the rushing specifically. So I think I'd take a look at both those numbers. The rushing yards for Ramondre Stevenson, the rushing plus receiving, consider unders on those, because justifiably they're very high, but also they're very high. So I think that that's where I'd be there. As far as the pass catchers go, The one guy who did catch my attention was Nelson Aguilar at 29.5. He has had a better role than he's had recently the past 3 games, and he's only gone over this number once in that span. But Jacoby Myers was playing, and for the majority of those games, and on Thanksgiving, Aguilar did go for 65 receiving yards. So he has the ability to get down there. Mac Jones, he can chuck it downfield. Should he? Don't know, but he can, and occasionally will. So I do have interest in Aguilar there. I think that if I were picking out a prop based on the ones we've discussed, my favorite would be the Stevenson rushing under 75.5, because you need him to go off in that regard specifically. But I do think that the Patriots side is the one that brings more value for this game.
Yeah. And just to let the people know, so Hunter Henry, 30.5 yards there, -113, like absolutely love that. Yeah. And even, I mean, to a certain extent too, I do love Devontae Parker at 39.5. He has not been getting there, but again, without Jacoby Myers there, Mac Jones is going to find some security blankets somewhere. And Devontae Parker has shown us that he does have the propensity to get things going, when given the chance. So just hoping that the opportunity kind of goes his way. I'd be willing to get on that number as well, too.
And again, downfield targets, too. Those can get you there in a hurry. Now, let's talk about the other side, which is kind of the opposite, where the Patriots are losing key players. The Cardinals are gaining them. No Rondale Moore here. He's still out with a groin injury, but this is the first time we've seen them, I believe, with DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown, and Greg Dortch all active. Now, that means what's Brown's role going to be? Because he played a lot of slot snaps before their bye week, and now Dortch is back, which means Dortch will probably be in the slot. And we've seen Kyler go that direction quite a bit this year, but it's also Greg Dortch, who I adore, full respect to him, but it's him versus Marquise Brown and DeAndre Hopkins.
Right.
So I don't know how to read the pass catching situation here. So my inclination is to say just no thanks and I'll avoid. Do you have a different read? What's your read on the Cardinal side of things here?
Yeah, I mean, the Marquise Brown thing is just frustrating because last week they told us that he was going to be on the pitch count, and then this guy goes out there and plays 97% of the snaps. So, I mean, I think they could use all the firepower that they can get. The cat is not out of the bag with the way that you beat this Patriots team. I mean, you can't not run on this team. The best runner in the past couple of weeks was Justin Fields when he put up 82 yards, and then outside of that, they've been stopping some of the best running backs in the game, and Nick Chubb and Dalvin Cook and things of that nature, from even getting to 60 yards, which I think is right around the prop of where they have James Conner at 59.5. So they got to lean on the pass catchers here in this game. And especially, like I said, in the over, I'm willing to get on some of these guys. DeAndre Hopkins, he comes in at 75.5 yards, which kind of feels a little bit lofty, but when you know that that's the best chance that they have to move the ball downfield, I think that there's some merit to that. We have no Marquise Brown line at this current juncture on the FanDuel Sportsbook. I'll be curious to see what his number comes in at. But I am interested also in the DeAndre Hopkins reception prop at over 6.5 is plus money. He could just get peppered with targets in this situation, especially the way that the Patriots bend don't break defense kind of plays between the 20s. So I think that does have some merit to it. And then while James Conner, I don't really love him from a rushing standpoint, and not really going to look at his rushing and receiving because of that look, but his receiving prop at over 18.5, we could see some dump offs there. The Patriots love to get pressure on the quarterback. And if Kyler, like you mentioned earlier, is not going to take off and run in a way that could be a path to success for them, I expect him to kind of dump it off to Conner here. There has been a couple games here where he's seen around 3 catches just last week against the Chargers and then against the Rams as well too, and kind of hitting around that number 20 yards, 17 yards, 19 yards. So he does have the propensity to kind of take one there. I think there is some interest in his over is 3.5 at plus 150. He's had 2 5-reception games, both of those coming at home here in tough defensive matchups. So I think there's some merit there. But yeah, I'm looking at the pass catchers when it comes to the Arizona Cardinals, because that's your best bet to kind of get over on this New England Patriots defense.
Yeah, I am curious where Dortch will come in once his props are posted. They're not up yet. But I'm curious where he settles in because of the role we've seen those guys have. I think this is one where it's really going to depend on what the market says. This is true of every single bet. It depends on what the market says. But if the market comes in as like, okay, Kyler loves targeting his slot guys, we're going to juice Dortch all the way up to like, so put his prop at a respectable range, then I'd be looking for unders because it's like, okay, he targeted the slot a lot, but it wasn't with DeAndre Hopkins and Marquise Brown being healthy. But I could also see a situation where they don't, give him a lot of interest. And maybe then you're looking at a situation where you could potentially bet an over. So I want to look at wherever we see the Dortch numbers come in and kind of get a read on that. I don't you kind of have to judge it for yourself because it's going to, I think this is a very volatile market, but I would look towards the Dortch numbers and see if there's any value there that can be had once those are posted later on. I think he'll be involved. I don't think he'll be as involved as he was, but that could still be enough within this offense. Now, you mentioned Hunter Henry. You talked about some Jonnu Smith for touchdown numbers. Right now, Hunter Henry is plus 330. Pretty good number. You also have Jonnu Smith at plus 550. Greg Dortch is plus 430 as well. That is the one Dortch prop that is posted. What touchdown props you seeing right now that you like, if any?
Yeah, I mean, the Hunter Henry run is the one that sticks out to me there at plus 330. We've seen him, be able to find a groove here as far as red zone targets go on the team, especially, again, no Jacoby Myers there. I do think Jonnu Smith is interesting just because of the way that he's utilized, close to the line of scrimmage, maybe without Damian Harris being there. They try and get him some runs as they get closer to the end zone, which I think would be an interesting way to scheme him. And he's plus 550 there, still having the favorable tight end matchup when they can use him if they choose to go with that personnel. So they have a little interest there, but really my favorite would be Hunter Henry. I do also think that when we're getting DeAndre Hopkins at plus money here at plus 140, like when they get close to the red zone there, I expect him to have that big body, be able to utilize that. And then Kyler Murray as well at plus 290. If there's a broken play, I don't think, they're going to be stacking the box when it comes anywhere close to the red zone there from the New England side of things. So maybe they try and get him out on a boot and can sneak him in there at plus, at 3-1 yards. I'm willing to take a quarterback on that run.
Murray one is interesting, plus 290, especially because it kind of gets you access to the thought process of the Patriots struggle to stop running quarterbacks without having to bet on the Cardinals, which is great. I don't really want that stress in my life. He did have a rushing touchdown last week, and he has been decently willing to run since he came back from that injury. I guess it's only one game, but 7 rush attempts there. Before the injury, he was running a bit more too. So maybe that one is kind of interesting. Plus 290 for anytime touchdown on Kyler Murray. Going back to Hunter Henry, do you have a preference? We have the receiving yardage over 30.5, the anytime touchdown plus 330. If you were picking one of those, which one do you think is the better route for getting exposure to Hunter Henry?
I think the Henry run, Henry receiving yards bet is going to be my favorite one of his. Just when you're getting plus 330 there, I'm always willing to kind of dabble at 3-1 and above on these touchdown props, especially when I like a player. To really hit the over on their line, because I just think the involvement kind of lends itself to that. But yeah, the receiving prop for him to just get over 31 yards is one that I'm willing to take for sure.
Okay, so we are all in on Hunter Henry. We'll see if Kyler Murray can get this offense chugging along, and we'll see if I regret rooting against Ramondre Stevenson because I adore him and don't want to do that. But hey, betting can make us do some regrettable things for sure in that regard. That is all that we got here for today for this Monday Night Football preview. But we got shows coming up all this entire week. All of my first look, week number 15. That feels weird. Coming up tomorrow, breaking down what my numbers are saying there and also recapping this past week. Also, I think I'm going to take a look at my power rankings and rank out those or talk about those in the show. I haven't been doing that. I think that might be a good thing. We'll talk about power rankings, games I like for week 15, and much more tomorrow. We've got some more World Cup discussion coming up this week. So plenty of good stuff coming here on Covering the Spread, including Ryan back with us on Thursday to talk about week number 15. Ryan, I want to thank you for swinging by for today. Enjoy tonight's game, and I'll talk to you once again Thursday to break down the full slate.
Sounds good, my friend. You enjoy it as well. And yeah, we'll gear up for week 15. We're winding down to the season there, and it's coming at us fast. But I appreciate it, Jim. Good luck, man.
Yeah, it's a convergence of being sad about that, but also being excited for the playoffs. It's always
Right.
that time of year for me, for sure. That is Ryan Williams. Check him out on Twitter at @RyanAlexander_W. I'm on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. Good luck to all you tonight. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.